Have you ever noticed that there are things you genuinely want to do, but somehow never get around to doing them? Maybe it's starting a YouTube channel, maybe it's learning a new skill, maybe it's working on a business idea you've been thinking about for years. And it's not that you don't care about it, in fact, you think about it often. So why don't we act? I've been thinking about this myself. There are projects I wanted to start, skills I wanted to learn, and ideas I wanted to explore. Yet sometimes weeks or even months pass without any action. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that laziness might not be the whole story. There seem to be a few things that get in the way. At least these are the ones I noticed in myself. The first one is energy. And I don't just mean physical tiredness. Sometimes we spend an entire week working, solving problems, attending meetings, dealing with responsibilities, and by the time the weekend arrives, we simply don't have much left to give. But I've also noticed something else. Even during weeks that aren't particularly stressful, I don't always feel like jumping into a side project. And I think that's because we are not just recovering from work. Sometimes we are recovering from obligation. We have spent 5 days of following schedules, meeting expectations, and working towards goals that aren't entirely our own. So when the weekend arrives, what we are often looking for isn't productivity, it's freedom. The freedom to sleep a little longer, the freedom to watch a movie, the freedom to spend a few hours doing absolutely nothing. There's an old idea that time isn't truly wasted if it serves a purpose. And maybe that's how we should think about some weekends. What looks like laziness from the outside may actually be recovery from the inside. Maybe we are not avoiding growth. Maybe we are simply trying to recharge before we grow again. But I don't think that's the whole story either. Because there have been times when I have had the energy, times when I genuinely wanted to start something, and yet I still didn't begin. Not because I was tired, not because I was busy, but because I felt like I wasn't ready. I told myself I needed to learn a little more, watch a few more videos, take another course, do a bit more research. And on the surface, that sounds responsible. After all, preparation is important. The problem is that preparation can quietly become a substitute for action. I noticed this in myself more than once. Before starting something, I often wanted to understand everything about it, the tools, the process, the best practices, the mistakes to avoid. But looking back, some of the things I learned the fastest were in the things I studied the most. They were the things I actually did. I remember spending a lot of time learning Power BI through courses. I understand the concepts and I know it was useful. But it wasn't until I had an actual dashboard to build that the learning had really accelerated. The moment there was a real problem to solve, everything started making sense. And it made me wonder how many things in life are like that. Maybe we don't need to learn everything before we begin. Maybe some of the most important learning only happens after we start. And even when we have the energy, and even when we have finally convinced ourselves to start, there's one more thing that can get in the way. The reward feels too far away. Think about most of the things we want to do: starting a YouTube channel, building a business, getting fit, learning a new skill. Very few of these things reward us immediately. In our jobs, the connection between effort and reward is usually clear. We work, we get paid, we solve a problem, we receive recognition. The feedback loop is relatively short, but many of the things we want to do outside of the work are different. You can spend weeks creating videos before anyone watches them. You can spend months learning a skill before you become competent. You can spend a long time building something before seeing meaningful results. And I think that's harder than we like to admit. Not because we are lazy, but because human beings naturally respond to feedback. We like knowing that our effort is leading somewhere. When the reward is visible, it is easier to keep going. When the reward is distant, uncertainty starts to creep in. And uncertainty has a way of slowing us down. Maybe that's why so many good ideas remain ideas. Not because people don't care about them, but because the part between effort and reward is long enough to test our patience, our confidence, and sometimes even our belief that it's worth continuing. So maybe the next time we catch ourselves saying, I'm just being lazy, it's worth asking a different question. Am I tired? Am I waiting until I feel ready? Or am I struggling with the fact that the rewards I want are still too far away to see? I don't think these are the only reasons, but there are the ones I noticed in myself. And perhaps understanding what's stopping us is the first step towards moving forward. Of course, these are just the things I've noticed in myself. I'm sure there are the one other reasons too. If you ever felt this way, I would be curious to know what gets in your way. Is it exhaustion, perfectionism, The distance between effort and reward? Or is it something completely different? And if you have managed to overcome it, I would love to hear about that.